بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد.
Hello, welcome to Islamic Civilization, session 13, which deals with the Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca, which is in Saudi Arabia. So again, this falls into what is called the pillars of Islam, or the rituals or the practices of Islam. So Islamic Civilization, session 13, still Islamic practices are the 5 pillars of Islam, but we would go into the last pillar of Islam, which is the Hajj, pilgrimage to Kaaba in Mecca. So let's see what we have in objectives. The overall objectives, as we have been covering for the past quite few sessions, Islamic practices or the 5 pillars of Islam, which are saying and believing in the Shahada. We talked about that. We have covered already that. Praying 5 times daily. We have covered that. Fasting in the month of Ramadan. We talk about that also. And we also talked about giving charity or zakah. But in this session, we would be dealing with going on pilgrimage to Kaaba, which is in Mecca, a place, a town located in Saudi Arabia. So for this presentation, let's see what are the objectives. Well, number 1, performing the Hajj, which is going on pilgrimage to Kaaba in Mecca. And we will talk about the eligibility for pilgrimage, who can go and who cannot, and why one cannot go. You would find out that also. Next, we would talk about the rites, the rituals of the pilgrimage itself, what it involves. Then we would talk about the end of the pilgrimage, and after that, celebration of Eid al-Adha. So those are the main objectives for this session 13, which, as I said, deals with the Hajj, the last pillar of Islam or the last practice of Islam, the Hajj, which is going to Kaaba on pilgrimage. So let's see what we have in this session 13. Performing the Hajj or pilgrimage to Kaaba. The Hajj, that is, as I said, pilgrimage to Kaaba in Mecca. It is the 5th and the last pillar or practice of Islam. And it is, again, commanded like other practices, commanded by God in the Quran. So it is obligatory on every Muslim and Muslim men and women, provided they have the ability. So it is performed only once in lifetime, and you would see why. Also, one is obligated to perform it, provided he or she has the physical and financial abilities. And Hajj brings together Muslims under one God, and you see that, simultaneously people, Muslims, they do the same rituals, common rituals at the same time in the same place. So Hajj, one more time, it is commanded by God in the Quran. It is performed only once in lifetime, provided a person, a Muslim, he or she has the physical and financial abilities. It brings together Muslims under one God, and all of them, they would do the same common rituals simultaneously. Now, Hajj, every ritual of Islam, every practice of Islam, the pillar of Islam, they have their own purposes. Each one has its own purposes. Although each one is commanded by God in the Quran that Muslim men and women, they must perform them, provided they can do them. So here also, just like in the time of fasting for the pillar of Islam, the fasting, the giving of charity, similarly in performing the Hajj, one has to have the ability to do it. So if a person does not have the ability to do it, then they should not do it. The idea is not to kill yourself or get yourself into trouble. The idea is to worship God within all the means and limits of the human inabilities and the human abilities. So if a person is able to do them, then they must do them. If they cannot do them, then they should not do them. And who is to judge them? Only God. So only the person knows if he or she can do it. If they can do it, fine, they must do it. If they cannot, then they should not. And so Islam, one more time, as I explained it in the other rituals of Islam, Islam does not have any organized church or organized priesthood to come after the person, whether he has done this or that ritual or not. People do it, on their own, out of their own sweet will. And that is the relationship between God and the person. And if he or she cannot do it, and they know they cannot do it, then they should not do it. And so that rule would also apply, the ability or the inability would also apply to the pillar of Hajj, pilgrimage to Mecca. And let's see what it involves. The Hajj and the Hajj period, 2 months and 10 days after the end of Ramadan, which is the month of fasting. So after 2 months and 10 days after the end of Ramadan, the Hajj period starts. It is basically the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th days of Zul Hijjah. That is another month, which is the last and the 12th month of the Islamic lunar calendar. So in these 3 days in Zul Hijjah, the Hajj is performed. Okay. And so some people, they arrive, 10 to 40 days earlier, the 8th and 9th and 10th day of Zul Hijjah. Some people, they spend more days, some people less. So somewhere between 10 to 40 days people arrive early to acclimatize with the place and to know what to do. And so that's the reason people arrive early. Let's see what else. The eligibility for Hajj. Sharia, that is the Islamic law, requires physical ability. The two elderly or the two young people, they should not go on the pilgrimage. And for obvious reason, they don't have that ability. So they should avoid harming themselves as well as other people. And it's a very crowded place. So here it comes, and that is if there are carriages or facilities, which is the ADA sort of facilities and carriages, disability friendly carriages and facilities, if they are accompanied by family and friends that can enable the elderly Muslim to perform the Hajj, then that's fine. So if there are enough facilities with a person, and now there are more, during Hajj in Mecca, around Kaaba, there are, wheelchairs and people who would take you from one place to another place on, some payment, which people, give them easily, and it's no burden to the person, then that is fine. Some elderly people, parents, they are being taken by their sons and daughters, to perform the Hajj. That is wonderful. If they have, someone to take them, that's fine. They can go. If there is no one to take them, even if they have the financial means, then they should not. Some people, those who don't have the physical ability, but they have the financial ability, they sometimes give money to other people who may have the physical ability but not the financial ability. So that is how the physically enabled people give money to the physically able people to go and perform the Hajj for them or, for themselves. So that's one way. It's a good way, but they don't have to do that. That's another thing. They do not have to do that, and that's the reason the physically enabled people but financially able people, they spend that money, on other causes and give them, in charities rather than going on Hajj, which they cannot. So remember the ability and inability to perform the Islamic practices. Simple. If you don't have the ability, don't do it. If you have the ability, you must do it. And you are your own judge. Nobody is going to come after you. Okay, and God knows. Okay, let's see what else we have. Eligibility for Hajj. Sharia requires, as I said, physical ability. There are 3 million Muslims every year, and they simultaneously perform the same ritual and in same place. So, think about it. It's very crowded and very congestion. A lot of crowds and a lot of congestions. And so if you don't have that physical ability to, move around the 3 million people, then, you should not do it, okay? So it requires a lot of patience. It requires a lot of control and forgiveness. If somebody bumps into you or, push you around inadvertently by mistake, then you should forgive them, okay? And don't do the same thing to other people. Second time pilgrimage is discouraged. If you did it one time, it is required only once in life anyway. And so if you did it one time, that is more than enough. Second time, let other people go and give them, the chance to perform. So that's why second time is discouraged. But people still go. National quotas are now imposed. The Saudi Arabian government, which is the custodian of Mecca and Medina, the whole Hajj, performance, they now give nations, Muslim nations, quotas that you can send only, these many people to perform the Hajj, no more, no less. And so that's how the national quotas have, in fact, controlled the crowds in and around Kaaba. That's one thing. Second thing is, as I said, people who have already performed the Hajj, they may not get the other chance, the second chance. Another chance, so to speak. And so if you apply and if you write in your Hajj forms application that you have already performed one, then they would say, they automatically reject you or they put you at the end of the line. So still, if the quota is not filled up, they might give you, another chance to go. And so that's how, now the crowds are controlled. The Saudi Arabian government spends a lot of money in making Hajj possible and easier. Every year they add one more thing that they can imagine would make life possible, easier for people. But still, think about it, 3 million people doing the same things at the same time. In the same place. That really makes it very difficult. And I had, the honor of doing it. And personally, when I came back, somebody asked me, what do you think? I said, this is the last time, maybe, I really don't know if I can go again. It's very exhausting. And that is why, Islam requires a Muslim to do it only one time. Okay, let's see what else. Staying with the eligibility for Hajj, 3 million pilgrims attend Hajj. And look at all that, up and down and every floor of the Kaaba is taken by people, and it's very crowded, okay? So that's the reason. Only once is more than enough. Sharia requires financial ability also, not just physical. Do not borrow money for pilgrimage. Yes, do not get yourself into, debt, or just in case you go on pilgrimage and God forbid something happens to you, then your children and family would be stuck with that debt. So do not borrow money for pilgrimage. Leave enough extra money for your family when you are gone on Hajj, so they would not borrow from people. And so that also includes in financial ability. Arrange for elderly parents' care first. You have, elderly parents living with you, and if you go, there would not be anybody to take care of them. That is not good. So make sure somebody is there to take care of them, because parents are very important, okay? So their physical and medical and financial needs must be taken care of before a person leaves for Hajj. And that, everybody knows that. So if a person goes to Hajj over the objection of, his or her parents, that's not good. Yes, you are going on Hajj, that's a good thing, but the first thing first is your parents. It is God's commandment, no question about it, but you just cannot leave your parents, like that, especially if they need your physical help, if they need your financial help. You must have enough care for them already in place before you leave on Hajj. And that tells you a lot how much Islam requires and encourages people and enjoins people to take care of their especially elderly parents. Very important. And it is by the Quran. Taking care of parents is by Quran. God enjoins it in the Quran. And so a lot of people would go to heaven because their parents were happy with them. And a lot of people would go to that other place because their parents were not happy with them. So respect for parents and physically taking care of them and financially taking care of, that is obligation of Muslims by Quran, by God, that has been required of them. Okay, let's see what else. Hajj represents global humanity, and Muslims pray 5 times a day in the direction of Kaaba, which is called Qibla, but at the same time, that direction, Kaaba and Qibla, to which Muslims pray 5 times a day, also, Muslims visit Kaaba in Hajj pilgrimage once in lifetime. So it is, as you see it, as if in the, in the center of the universe. So Muslims, they come from different directions of the globe, right, left and, north and south and west and east, from all the continents and countries to perform the Hajj. And that is, as you see it, like literally in the middle of the globe of planet Earth. And so Muslim, they visit Kaaba for Hajj, for pilgrimage once in lifetime. Okay. The Hajj. Almost all Muslims go to Hajj in groups, which is good to take care of one another. Women are, however, they have to be accompanied by parents, brothers, husbands, sons, or nephews. These are the people that a woman cannot marry. So they are called muhrams. So any of these should accompany when women go for Hajj. However, there are some women get exemption because they go with other women, in the groups. So sometimes they get exemption for that. However, they are highly recommended, required rather, to go with their parents, their brothers, husbands, sons, or nephews. Especially husbands, when they go to Hajj, they must take their wives with them. Men wear ihram, the unsewn white clothes. They are not stitched even. Okay, unstitched, unsewn white clothes, men wear them. It's called ihram. 2 pieces basically. Women, however, they have the choice to wear white color or any other color, but they cannot wear ihram. They have to be in regular clothes. And so you would see, why that is the case. Okay, let's see. This is the Hajj map. And so it basically starts from Mecca on the left and goes to Mina, Muzdalifah, and Arafat, and back again. Okay, but with this one, in this animation, we show you only one way. It's not one way, it's both ways. So once we go to Arafat, at the end of it, then we go back to Mecca and do the last tawaf, or the circling of the Kaaba, and it takes quite some time. Although the distance is not really more than it's less than 30 miles, but because there are 3 million people, it's very difficult to move, even a mile. And so that's why it takes a long time, and that's why everybody has to be in good condition. I mean, people are bused, and they use buses to move around people back and forth. And there are now, they introduced last year, that is in 2011, they introduced railways, carriages, and so that people liked it, and hopefully it would be further improved, and so it would be done in a nice and fashion and a quick fashion and easy and in a smooth way. Okay, let's go further. Map of Hajj rituals. Here it gives you, when you get to your PowerPoint, it gives you where you start from, out of Mecca first, and then you go to Mecca, then you go to Mina, then you go to Arafat and back to Muzdalifah and Mina, and then back to Kaaba. And so it gives you the numbers where to do what. Okay? At every stage, Muslims do certain rituals. Okay? Ihram, the unsewn clothes for Hajj, and there you see them. There are two pieces, one to wrap around, shoulder and waist, and the other is like using sort of a trouser, from waist down. And so for men, it has to be white, these two pieces white, and women, they can wear white or whatever they want, but they have to be regular clothes. Okay? All right. And let's see the ihram, how it looks like. There are, a little boy, somebody dressed him like that, and there are three, young people sitting in the ihram. Speaking of ihram, one day people are done with all the performance, with all the rituals of Hajj, and they come back, they bring their ihram with them. And I've heard these stories that some people use them as shrouds. Muslim bury dead, their deads. So when a person dies, he or she might, ask the relatives to give them their ihram as their shroud, or wrap them, in the ihram. I don't know what happened to mine. I brought it home, safe and sound and all fine and neat and clean, but I really don't know, it may have disappeared in my own home, as so many other things disappeared. So anyway, ihram, one does not have to bring it back. You could give it to someone, and that also happens. People, they donate it to other people to perform their Hajj. Okay, let's see. And there, boy, these tents and nothing but the tents, all the whole Mecca and Medina and in Mina and, so many places you have these tents and tents, because they have to, cover out 3 million people. You are just looking maybe like not even, 5% of the whole, this tentage. It is beyond the mountain and above the mountain and everywhere, tents and tents. Sometimes there are fires also, because people, they can be, careless, and so they fix their stoves and cook their things, and so that's how fire also occur, which is not good. But now becoming more and more, better and better. These are the Kaaba minarets. When you go there, the first thing you see, these are tall minarets, and it gives you sort of assurance that you have finally arrived. And so seeing these minarets, which means these are the minarets of Kaaba itself. Okay, right there. So these minarets, when you see them, boy, from outside, you really think you are already there. And so then you get to, in the gate, and there are quite a few gates, and you get to the Kaaba itself. The Kaaba is basically this black cube-like, as you see it on your monitor. So the Kaaba is the black cube-like structure that is the Kaaba. And this Kaaba has its own piece of cloth. So every year for Hajj, they change, replace it. And so let's see the Kiswah, as it's called, the black cloth over Kaaba. It's about a 45 by 130 feet black cloth of silk and cotton. Yes, it's black, embroidered in gold thread with the Shahada and verses from the Quran. And by this time you should know, what Shahada is, and verses from the Quran. Last time, 2011, it cost $4.5 million because of the gold, and I think becoming more and more expensive. And it is prepared by the same people since 1927. It's the same group of people, and they're, boy, expert in creating and making this black cloth for the Kaaba. Okay. Let's see. Every year a new Kiswah, as I said, is prepared. The old Kiswah is given in small pieces to pilgrim heads of states from different countries. Muslim countries, about 57, 58. So when they visit the royal family of Saudi Arabia, they also invite the head of the states who happen to be there also for Hajj. And so they invite them, and then they give them, as a sort of a blessing, and a piece that they would take it to their home countries and nation and make it, deposit it in their national treasuries. And so that's how the old piece of Kiswah is given to other nations. And I think Malaysia one time got the whole thing. I think that's better, for other nation to wait till their own turn comes and get the whole piece rather than just pieces, small pieces. Okay, let's see. Kiswah, black cloth over Kaaba. Right there you see, people working hard, preparing it for the Hajj. Every new Hajj, every new Kiswah. Okay. There is the, one plate. It is, a verse from the Quran, all over, verses from the Quran, as well as the Shahada. Okay. There's another dimension from another dimension looking at the Kiswah. Here is, I believe, an old Kiswah from 1950s, looks like one from 1950. So it says, La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah, the Shahada. There is no God except Allah, and Muhammad, peace be upon him, is God's messenger. Okay, let's see what else we have in Kiswah. This Kiswah was given in 1966 to Malaysia. And so, it looks, old, but still, it is Kiswah, and the Malaysian government had the honor of having it, receiving it from the Royal Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So it is now with Malaysia. Staying with the Kiswah, right there you see on the left, an old picture. Boy, it looks like early 1920s, and the new one, so recently. And so that is how the Kiswah, is wrapped around the Kaaba. Kaaba, as I said, is the black structure, which is like a cube-like. And so Kaaba and cube, they, rhyme together, okay? Maybe cube, check it out, cube may be derived from Kaaba. It cannot be the other way around anyway, okay? All right, the Kaaba and its minarets, as I said, you would love to see these minarets from outside, and when you see them, your heart, goes up and down, that finally you are there. And so it's a sort of wonderful feeling when you are there. It's a feeling of you anticipate the whole Hajj, and you've never been there, especially if you are there for the first time. But some people tell me that even if, you go 50 times, every time you go there, you feel like you are, there for the first time. So there are a lot of, emotion, spirituality to it. And when you see I tried my best to take a picture, but they say, the police they don't allow. But I went to a police officer there. I told him I'm going to take a picture, for my class of the minaret, and he said, yeah, go ahead, So he allowed me to take a picture, and I brought it, to my class to show it to my students. Okay, let's see what else we have. The Hajj rituals. Now let's see what the Hajj rituals are. Tawaf, that is going around, circling the Kaaba 7 times. So on the left side, you see the sort of the opening on the left side of the Kaaba. That is the starting point. And so you go, anti-clockwise around Kaaba 7 times. 7 times, most probably, check on your own. Ask the Imam if you happen to be, in a masjid, or ask, a Muslim scholar, why 7 times? I was told because there are 7 heavens, 7 days in the week. And so that's why, you go 7 times. It's not written in the Quran, though, but it is a tradition coming from the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Muhammad, peace be upon him, from him, because he did 7 times. And most probably, who knows, Abraham, who constructed this Kaaba with the help of his son Ishmael, 2,000 years before Jesus. This Kaaba was constructed, built by Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael. And so this whole Hajj ritual or pillar of Islam is in commemoration of what Abraham did. And that is how this Kaaba unites people, Muslims, unites Muslims with Prophet Abraham in the ritual of the Hajj. So keep in mind, Hajj was always there before the rise of Islam. And so Islam reintroduced it in the real form. This Kaaba that I showed you, the black structure, before Islam, the Arab polytheists, because they worship different gods, they would keep, gods inside the statues. There were about 300 inside. So with the rise of Islam and the Prophet, when he conquered Mecca, he cleared it out and all these, statues, and restored this Kaaba and the Hajj itself for the worship of only one God, Allah. And that is how, through Kaaba and through Hajj, Muslims are connected to other humanity and to the history that goes as far back as the days of Abraham, alayhi salam, or peace be upon him, and his son Ishmael, peace be upon him. Okay, let's go see. Running between Mount Safa and Marwa. This is in commemoration of Hagar, who was banished by Abraham, and they came here to this place. And so these are two mountains. And she would run between the two mountains because she was looking for water, but at the same time would run back to see her infant boy if he was okay. And so this running back and forth between the sun and the water, that also became part of the Hajj. And this going between the Mount Safa and Marwa is not, too long. I think you can go one way like in less than 10 minutes. And so it's now air conditioned and nice and all that, not rugged as it used to be. So it's also part of the Hajj, how Hagar had to run between water, finding water, and for her son between water and sun. Okay. There is also the black stone outside Kaaba. So Muslims, they are not required, but out of the blessing of the stone itself, they try to kiss or at least touch the black stone. But now they cannot do either because it has encased and protected because of the kissing and the touching. Who knows, it might just disappear. Think about it, 3 million people, in less than 10 days they come and kiss and touch, and so it already has turned black. Whether originally it was black or not, there is the story or the tradition that it turned black because of our sins. And so, or when we perform Hajj, our sins are removed from us, and so that could be the reason. I really do not know, but I've heard stories that it turned black because of the sins of humanity, or especially of Muslims, I would say. It turned black, and so that is the story of the black stone. There are theories that it fell down from heavens. Some people say it could be a meteoric stone, meteor that came down, and so it was brought to the right place of Kaaba, and that's how we have it, the black stone. And so people used to touch it and kiss it, but now it's a bit difficult because 3 million people, they cannot do that anyway. So let's see what else we have. Kissing, touching the black stone right there. People try their best at least to touch it or to point towards it. I believe still they let head of the states to kiss it on behalf of their nations. Okay. I just pointed to it. I just couldn't go. And so this is the stone as you see in this image, and there you see the image of the Prophet. Most Muslim would not create this image, but somebody did anyway, and so we had to blur the face of the Prophet, and that's not like he looked like, or the Prophet in this image, so to speak, and the 4 people surrounding him, or they all look like Mongolite, someone from Mongolia or China. Arabs don't look like that, and so that tells you the whole thing that these are fabricated, images. But so what it was, it shows how Muhammad, peace be upon him, was perceived in his community as a peacemaker. So when they were reconstructing the Kaaba, then came the issue, who is going to place that stone back in the same place? And so there was a dispute. Each and every leader wanted, tribal leader wanted to have that honor. And so they were soon about to fight over this issue of, who would have the honor of placing that stone. So the Prophet came, Muhammad came before. He declared himself a prophet. He came and he said, look, just put it on a piece of cloth and each one combine in the effort to take it to the right place. And then they were surprised with this type of a, simple solution. And so they asked him to take the honor and place it in the right place. And that's from then onward, it is in that place where the Prophet placed it, the black stone. Okay, let's see what else. Oh yes, drinking the Zamzam water. On the left, you have the old picture. On the right, you have, the latest, and they modify and reconstruct and modify, to make it easy for people. So this Zamzam is the water that Hagar, the other wife of Abraham, she had to look for water, and she found that water right there to give it to her son and use it for herself. And so it is still there, this Zamzam water, and you go on pilgrimage, then you, at the end of it, or even during the Hajj, you drink that water inside Kaaba, inside Mecca. Outside the structure of Kaaba. And boy, I was so tired, and I drank so much of it that even I could not even walk, and that's how it is very, it has a sort of a taste that you really want to drink it and drink it and drink it. There is something to it. It's not like, if you go outside Mecca, Kaaba, and you drink other water, maybe a few feet away from this place, that water does not taste as wonderful as this Zamzam water does. And so you drink a lot of that water. Some people, wash their face and hands with it, believing that this is blessed water, holy water, and it might cure you depending on the person's, attitude and belief, I believe. So I had to do, wash my face, and my wife asked me, to wash my hands because I had some problems with my hands, and they are cured, and so I had to take medication also. I had to tell you that, okay? It was not just only Zamzam water, I also used medication, and so now they are fine. And so people do that. They drink and they use it on a body of, parts of the body to cure themselves. It's a wonderful, taste, and some people bring it. I really did not want to bring it, but my wife asked me to take it home. I said, okay. So I brought it because she wanted. And then you give it to your friends and, other family members, and mix it with other water. So it's a, very tasty, good water. Okay. Stoning the Satan, that's another ritual, very important ritual. And it is also in commemoration of Abraham when he stoned Satan and rejected satanic deception. Because when he was going to sacrifice his son, remember? Abraham and so Satan came to Abraham and his son, telling them this is, lunacy. You cannot do this. You are going to slaughter your own son just because God asked you? And he said yes. So both had to stone Satan. And so in sort of a symbolic of that event, Muslims also stone. There are 3 pillars. In Mina, in Hajj, 3 pillars, and so people, Muslims, they stone the 3 pillars that represent 3 Satans. Okay, let's see. Praying at Mount Arafat, that is also, the last and the most important ritual, going to Mount Arafat. This is the place, as you see this, sort of a column, white column. This is the place the Prophet stood, and he gave that last sermon in 632 AD. And we would go into, just the gist, a few points of what that sermon was, a short sermon as it was. This is also Malcolm X. He mentions it, in his book. When he went to Hajj, he could not believe there were so many white people, white European, white Americans, and he came to right there. The Hajj changed his entire perspective on Islam, and he found for himself that Islam is the religion of all races, of all people, and so he converted to the mainstream Islam. As you might know, he belonged to the Nation of Islam, which is now run by Louis Farrakhan, and so he converted. He left the Nation of Islam in 1964, and that's why most probably he was assassinated. So when he came to Hajj, he could not believe that the white man, that back home in United States in Chicago he had to call the white man devil. He could not believe that same white man was his brother in Islam. And he saw them left and right, white Europeans, white Americans, white people from all over the world, and as well as blacks, because Saudi Arabia is very close to Africa, and so a lot of black Muslim. And in fact, you cannot imagine without black people from Africa. You cannot imagine Islam without the blacks. The first caller to the prayer, which is called azan, the call to the prayer is called azan. That first azan, the first muazzin, the first caller in Islam was a black person by name Bilal. He used to be a slave, and then Muslim bought him and set him free, and the Prophet asked him to go and make that first call to the prayer. And that's how all along in history Islam had whites and blacks and every race and ethnicity in it. So that was a good finding for Malcolm X, and then he converted to mainstream Islam. When he came back, he was assassinated. Okay, let's see what else we have. And so Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his Sermon on the Mount, he told people, life and property of people, that is sanctity. It's sacred. So he stressed the sanctity of life and property. He also prohibited usury, the exorbitant interests. Okay, if somebody needs money, just give it him or her for free, and take your capital, but do not take any more. Do not exploit people on the basis of their needs. Okay. He also stressed the rights of women. Women also have rights, he said, over men, and wives are divine trust with husbands. So do not mistreat this divine trust. Do not violate the divine trust, which is your wife. That was the message. Muslims should not practice any ethnic or racial superiority. So Islam does not recognize any superiority of any race or any ethnicity. He told people very clearly, no Arab has any superiority over non-Arab, and vice versa. No white has any superiority over black, nor any black has any superiority over white. And he also told people, there is not going to be any prophet after me. So follow the Quran and follow the Hadith. Let's see what else we have. Sacrifice of Abraham is also part of the Hajj. So thank goodness he did not sacrifice his son, because the angel, the story is, stopped him and replaced the son by a lamb or sheep or goat, and that's what Muslims on the right are doing. So they are slaughtering, I believe that is goat, and so that's the and every Muslim, when he or she performs the Hajj, they slaughter an animal, can be sheep or goat, and then what happens to the beef or the meat, they give it to poor people. In Hajj, you don't have your relatives and poor people to give it to them. They just leave it there, and the government of Saudi Arabia takes care of it, and then it sends throughout Africa and other Asian countries those people who need meat or beef. Then they get them in these days in refrigerated trucks and airplanes. They are shipped and taken to other nations. I've seen it as far away as Pakistan and India. They come from Hajj and people, consume it there in their own countries. And it's considered also to be sort of a, great blessing from the Hajj that when people receive this. Okay, let's see what else. So then the Eid al-Adha sacrifice of Abraham, right there when you, perform your Hajj, finish your Hajj, you sacrifice the animal and then you make 3 portions out of them. Keep one for yourself, give the second one to your relatives, poor relatives, and the third one to the non-related people in the neighborhood. So that is how they are made into 3 portions, one for your family, the other for your relatives, and the third one for your people in the community. Okay, and that's the good use of that meat. Then after the Hajj, there is a huge big celebration called Eid al-Adha, a very happy occasion. And so people in their countries, not only during the Hajj, but also, in the countries, they celebrate the same day when the Hajj is finished. In the rest of the Muslim world, people celebrate the Hajj with, prayers and then a lot of festivities. Okay, so there you see people praying. Right here, group of Muslim women in the United States or in New Jersey, they are praying. And so there is a, a young girl standing up and I think teasing the other one during prayer. And so kids, they do that. And it's okay if they do that, that's fine. But this is the end of the Hajj. So for performance of the Hajj is concerned. So Hajj, very exhausting, especially these days. As I said, 3 million people, they go there. And most of them are new Muslims. I mean, not like a newly converted Muslim, but so every year the Hajj attracts new group of people, new group of Muslim, 3 million of them, think about it. And I bet it's increasing because population, is increasing all over the Muslim world and in the rest of the world maybe not that much. So that's why, as I said in the beginning, they have to set quotas. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, they had to set quotas and discourage people not to come for the second and the third boy. In my wife's family, there are ladies. In her family, I think they have gone for the 4th and 5th time to Hajj from Pakistan. And so a lot of other countries, people do that because, wonderful experience. It is full of spirituality. So some people like, if they can do it, they would do it, every year. But then that makes it a crowded place. And that's why the Saudi Arabian government had to set quotas. So second timers were told, please let, other people come for Hajj. You've done your job, your duty, so it's more than enough once in lifetime. Okay, let's see what else we have. Reaction paper is coming, reaction report, session 13. So you should write brief notes on the Hajj rituals. Give me, step by step what rituals Muslim perform during Hajj. Okay. And the significance of Hajj. As you might have noticed, it serves, a great purpose, bringing people together under the same God, same one God. To Kaaba is the same place. Speaking of Kaaba, as you noticed, it is as if in the center of the universe, at the center of planet Earth. And so Muslim, they come from different directions, different places, different ethnicities, different races and region, and all come in the same color, men especially, in the same color white, in the same clothes, ihram, the 2 pieces that they wrap around themselves, and then, so 2 pieces for up and down, unsewn, unstitched. And then when they're done with the Hajj, they can take, the ihram along with them or leave it there or give it to someone. So you see the real unity of humanity under one divine being, Allah. and it is a great message of Islam, and the Quran talks about it in a wonderful way. It says that God created you, you being the human beings, addressing the humanity. God created you from one set of parents, Adam and Eve. And then he divided you into tribes and nations so that you would know each other, not to hate each other. Yes, almost literal, I gave you almost the literal translation of the verses in the Quran in which God says, I created you from the same man and woman, Adam and Eve, and divided you or turned you into nations, tribes, so that you would know each other, identify each other, not to hate each other. So the difference of the color that we have, one black, another white, and in between, the sizes that we have, tall, short, So these differences of the body and the color, they are not really for one to say I'm superior and the other is inferior. No. God says, I turned you into nations and tribes so that you would know each other, not to hate each other. And so that is the message of Islam that you see during Hajj. Telling people, come to my house, this house of God, created 2,000 years before Jesus, as I said, by Prophet Abraham and his son Ishmael. And when you really go there, you see men and women together. As I told you in the daily 5 prayers time, and the pillar of Islam, the second pillar of Islam, praying, worshiping God 5 times a day. In that one, men and women, they pray separately. But here in Hajj, you cannot separate them. So they are all together. And so that is allowed. And it's only, for a few days. And so you are so intensely involved in the rituals of Hajj that your mind does not, afford to wander or do other things, except focusing on the rituals and the prayers, the formulas that you say again and again, and most of the best one, prayer is in which Muslims, 3 million of them, they pray constantly, praying to God, saying, begging God and praying to God to give them peace, to give them prosperity, to give them the goodness of this world and the goodness of the other world, the hereafter, and keep them away from the torment of the hellfire. And so that is a constant prayer. Muslims begging God to give them the goodness of this world and the goodness of the hereafter, and keep them away from the torment of the hellfire. So it is really, when you recite it in Arabic, it's a beautiful dua, prayer as we call it. And so that is the essence of the Hajj. So when you go there, you really see a lot of people of every race and ethnicity, and you just look at Islam, a really, truly universal religion. At the same time, if you just go around a little bit, maybe a few yards, then you hear another thing. It's amazing. When I was there, I thought I was surrounded by everybody that was not from my ethnicity or not coming from my language. And it was only in 2-3 minutes when I was just sitting there with my wife, and boy, I heard people talking in my language, which is Pashto, which is spoken, in the northwestern part of Pakistan and the southeastern part of Afghanistan, and it is one of the 2 official languages of Afghanistan, Pashto. And so I couldn't believe that only a few yards away from me or feet away from me were Pashtun people who were talking to one another in my language. So I went to them and asked them where they were from. And lo and behold, I just could not believe that. They came from a place where, their village was only 5 miles to the west of my village. And so I didn't have time to talk to them. I bet I could, know their maybe elders, who knows, their fathers. And so I just could not believe. I thought I was surrounded by everybody else. And only a few feet away, there were people who came from the same area that I come from, the northwest part of Pakistan, the Pashtun land, so to speak, the Pashtun area of Pakistan. And so again, when I went to this one mountain, I could not believe, myself. Only there I found another Pashto speaker people coming from Afghanistan. And this is just amazing, although you would be surrounded by a lot of African people coming from Africa, a lot of Arabs, a lot of Turks, Malaysian, Indonesian, you name it, all of them, they're there. Although we were a group of, Muslims from Hawaii. We were a group of about 10 people from Hawaii, and I was their leader. And so we went there and came safe and sound. It is a long story. Maybe another time, maybe when you come to Leeward Community College, we can talk about it. So let's get back to the presentation. All right, we have a review. So we talked about Islamic practices, and this was the last one, the Hajj, pilgrimage to Kaaba in Mecca. I think you survived all the practices of Islam. So Hajj, we talked about Hajj and the Hajj conditions, the requirements, that you have the ability, the physical and financial ability to perform. If you don't have those abilities, then stay home. We talked about the Hajj rituals and the significance of Hajj bringing the humanity under one divinity. Okay, so that in review, and connecting, Hajj would connect people, Muslims, with history and humanity, with fellow human beings, and as far away as 2,000 years before Jesus, as Abraham started, the practice of Hajj, or maybe it was already there, who knows, Okay, let's see. Yeah, stay engaged, please. And if you have any question, any comments, let me know. Go to Lavlima, and from there you can, also send me a message, and you check your assignments, regularly there. If I have any messages, that'd be great. And so thank you very much for tuning in. And next time we will go back to the history of Islam, especially how caliphate was started. So we're done with the pillars of Islam. Thank you very much. Aloha.